Hello, so I'm Kip from Kartegraphik. I'm just going to walk you through some of the basic steps for early paper cutters. I teach this in my classes. I'm unfortunately not doing that right now, but I thought I would release this online to help you out. I get a lot of questions about it. So you can log on to my website through the link in the bio and sign up to my newsletter, and I will send you one of these. You can download it for free, print it off at home. I recommend paper that is about 165 GSM. So it has a little bit of a bend to it. It's not card, but it's not exactly printer paper either. If you have printer paper like this, much more bendy. You could totally use this, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But this is my favorite paper. It's Tiziano Fabriano, I think, and while that's probably not available to most of you, something in that range will be fine. Particularly for practicing, it doesn't matter. You'll find out very quickly whether or not your paper is suitable for paper cutting, because you'll have a hard time or you won't. So try out, experiment, it costs you nothing. This is an A4 piece of paper. If you are outside of the EU and not using A sizes, you can download the 8.5 by 11 letter size and print it off. They're already ready to go. So here's my knife. I recommend using a craft knife. You can absolutely use something else, one of these, if you have to, so long as you've broken off the blade to make sure that you have a sharp one. This is totally fine. They wobble a lot, they're not the best, but if it's all you've got and you're practicing, it doesn't matter. I recommend a craft knife of some kind. This is an NT cutter. Let's see if we can see that. You probably cannot see it because of the light. It says NT cutter right here. It's a Japanese knife that I have many of. They come in a variety of things. This one is a swivel head, which ironically I don't really use for its swiveling capacity, but it does make this really easy to use. Okay, so make sure that you've printed this off and that you have a sharp craft knife. I recommend replacing the blade first. Most of you will probably have one of these. Totally fine. Go ahead and use those. Just make sure the blade is done. You're only really going to be using about this tiny bit of the tip, so it doesn't really matter if it isn't super sharp, but it is best to replace it first. So you should work your way across the page this way, and then you should be able to tackle these shapes down here. So you're cutting out the gray bits. This is what we call negative cutting, because you're creating the shape by removing the space. This shape here is the same as this shape here, and this is a positive cut where you're essentially removing the space around it and leaving paper behind. So this shape, that white shape, same as this one. Those are the two basic principles for designing a paper cut design. And this gets a little bit easier as you do practice, but just to make sure that you have to leave the white bit behind. Any white bit you have must be connected, otherwise it goes away and you're left with a larger shape. So you want to take your knife and insert it at the corner and drag down. You should be cutting towards you. You want to be comfortable. You're not pressing too hard into your mat. If you feel a lot of resistance, it's really hard, you're pressing too hard. If you end up with a divot in your finger like that, not just a comfortable one, but like one that might hurt, you're pressing too hard. Then I come down here and take the parallel line, pull it towards you. Then I rotate my paper, okay? These longer lines are much easier if you do them in one simple go, like this. Do not worry too much about making a perfect line. You'll get better with practice. If you're super perfectionist, as I am, I suggest you try and let it go, but we never actually managed to do that. So you can use a ruler if you want. Boom. This should come over. Tapped a little bit in the corner here. Don't pull it out. Just put your knife back in and drag it down just the tiniest bit, and then it will release. Right? So there's your shape. If you want to use a ruler, cutting ruler, it's got a nice little metal bar here and it's clear. So you could line it up, just make sure it's perfect, and then cut along it. But that's not necessary. So that's your basic cut. So go ahead and do it again, like this. Insert, drag towards you, insert, drags towards you. Rotate your paper and pull down. And again, if it sticks, go back in and cut over it again. You should be just fine. Follow that along, pull there. If you end up with wonky edges that you don't particularly want, you can go back and cut them a little bit. These knives will allow you to cut very fine. So you can cut a very thin strip off the side like that. And then go back in and trim it out. And that will help even it up. So you can go ahead and follow through all of these lines. With the curved bits, what's important here is that you're rotating your paper. You have to move your paper a lot in paper cutting. You can approach the sort of curved areas in a couple of ways. You can just make one swoop like that. You can pull it down here, pause to reset your paper while keeping your knife in, and then move down. Or you can take it in little steps as you feel most comfortable. Practice and find a way that works for you. But generally I find it's easiest to do it either in one go or to pause in the middle without removing the knife, rotate your paper, and pull down. So, insert your knife, follow along that edge. When I reach the sort of apex of that curve, I like to rotate, keeping my knife in the paper, and then pull down. That helps keep that movement comfortable for my arm. And go back again, do the same on this side. So drag it down. And so I did that in one fell swoop. And this is a very shallow curve, so that's quite easy. Go back in, cut that. Again here. If you're having trouble at those corners, you might need to overcut a little bit, so pull just a little bit past. So when you insert it, you go just a little bit past, and then it should pull up nice and easy like this. I try not to overcut too much. Just coming back at the corner. Trim that, should come right out. So this is technically the front of the paper. I always cut back to front, so that actually from the front side you don't necessarily see any of those overcuts in case you've got them. So if you make a mistake, it's a little bit easier in the thicker paper to avoid that being seen from the front. So that's how you cut the curved lines. So you should be able to then take both of those approaches to all of these shapes along here, right? When we get down to circles and the text, there's a couple of things to note. So we'll approach circles after this, but with the text, the most important part is that this bit here, which is called the counter, inside of the shape, so that any bit that's entirely enclosed, you have to make a decision when you're doing paper cutting to cut that out or to make an attachment. So you essentially need to stencil it. Because if I just cut this shape out, great, then I cut this shape out and I said I just have this giant big O with no counter inside it. I don't like shapes without a counter in them. Many people don't care. I do, so I always leave them in, almost exclusively. So to make a stencil, you simply make a cut in at the top, make a little bar there, right? And I'll do another one at the bottom. It's helpful if you mark this out in pencil because then you won't overcut it and cut away from it. So I've cut in my little stencil there, and let's see if I can get a pencil. Go ahead and make a little mark so I know where that is. And again, this is the back, so it doesn't matter. And so I'll start here at the top, rotating my paper and my knife like so. All right, I'm going to do the same again. You can see that I've cut that bit out. Then we'll start here, go around the counter, and there. Right? So then it comes out nice and easy. Do the same thing from this side. Rotate my paper, keeping that motion nice and fluid. And again, don't worry about being perfect. This took years and years of practice. We pull that over. So then go back in and do the same thing here. Like that. Rotate my paper. Okay, perfect. So now we can see that when I turn it over, it's a stencil. So that's what I mean when I leave that out. Because if we cut this off, you're just left with that giant O shape. I don't like that. But you can like whatever you want, your paper cut. So that's how we approach text. And again, this is the reason that it's backwards, is because it's meant to be read this way, O-U-T. With circles, these are the hardest bits. You can decide never to do them. There are many different things you could use. You could use a hole punch. You can use a compass. There are compass cutters, though those are also complicated. A few people have found success with swivel knives, like this one, to cut around. I've never been good at that, so I don't ever try. With large shapes like this, I simply insert the knife, following along that edge, rotating the paper as we go. And I'm really just holding the knife fairly steady, and I'm actually making all of the movement with the paper itself. So actually no part of this hand is resting on the paper. It's entirely on the knife. And then I'm just rotating that paper as I go along. Right? Nice slow process. Like that. There we go. Circle. That way around. Pretty good. It's a little bit better when I'm a little bit closer to the paper. So there's that. With the little ones, you can do the same technique that I just did. We go all the way around, rotating the paper. You can also cut them into little pie wedges, like so. And some people find this helpful. Some people don't, but these are the best ways I've found to cut them out. And so then you can just sort of approach each one. Just make sure that you're giving it a little bit of a curve. Right? So they just come out. You can make sure that you're doing it right there. You don't have to do very much on the curve. You can go back and clean it up a little bit later if you need to. Right? Just move those bits. Remember, the important bit about the knife is that you really want to be holding it as perpendicular to your paper as possible. Don't rotate this way, don't rotate that way. You end up with an undercut or an overcut, depending on which way you're going from the front. And then you end up with this sort of like thin lip at the edge of the cut, which can look very messy. They tend to fray. And often if you're using light, you can see the translucence difference, and it doesn't look as appealing. So there we go. And then do the last one, like so. Right? That's pretty good. And you can see there's just a tiny bit of gray left there, but you wouldn't know it from the front. So you can see it's just a little bit uneven there. And I can probably go back in and just tidy that up just the tiniest bit. Though we try to resist fixing it, because often it can look not nearly as good as you wanted. Let's see if I can just trim that bit of gray off. There. And if you have a very sharp knife, that shouldn't be too difficult. There we go. Perfect. So that's how you approach circles. So I hope you've found that helpful. That's my whistle-stop tour of the introduction to paper cutting. Thanks so much.